Let's bring in Robert Skidelsky, Lord Skidelsky, of course, with the House of Lords in the United Kingdom. You know him from his many works on Maynard Keynes. Wonderful to have you here.
It's great to be here.
Why are you in America?
Why?
Are you escaping? Are you escaping austerity?
I'm not escaping austerity. I'm here to partly to promote the new edition of my book, Keynes: The Return of the Master, and also to do some work on economics.
If you wrote Keynes now, the new book, the thinner book, the more readable book than the 3 volumes, folks, if you stacked them up, they'd be about that high. The only one that's ever read them all is Meghdad Desai at the LSE. But anyways, the new book, what would you write differently now than you wrote 2-3 years ago?
Well, the new thing that's happened is, of course, the world economic crisis of 2007, 2008. And so I reinterpreted, I rethought my Keynes in the light of this. It's something that he wouldn't have been surprised about, because he would have thought that any system as unregulated as ours had become was bound to be fragile and collapse.
Right. Well, here's the dreaded first chart. This is history repeating itself, as Lord Skidelsky just talked about. Look at the chart down here, and you can see yuan, and it's, again, we're seeing appreciation of the yuan. It's appreciated, stronger renminbi, 20% back from a few years ago. Are the Chinese listening to the United States, or are they doing this for domestic reasons?
I don't think they're listening on the basic point, which is that they think the Americans are spending too much. They don't think that the imbalances, current account surpluses and deficits, are their fault. Right. They think it was the fault of loose money policy in America, and therefore they're not really prepared to accept the responsibility for adjusting. But there's got to be some adjustment, because you can't go on reproducing these imbalances.
Does the United States want to adjust? When you hear President Obama's comments, does he want to adjust, or is he just looking through the prism of China and Asia? Hey, guys, you adjust.
Well, he's saying we're going to drive down the value of the dollar, and that's the American way of adjusting, and they're going to, and the Americans, I think, want to do that by their policy of quantitative easing.
I'm going to come back and look at some charts, but this chart is critical, and I wanted to set the template here. I think, Lord Skidelsky, there's a lot of Americans that don't know this. China, per capita, inflation-adjusted GDP is roughly $2,000 based on this World Bank series. The United States at the same moment, end of 2009, 2010, is $36,000. We can say what we want, but there's a huge gap in per capita prosperity, isn't there?
There is a huge gap. There's a narrowing gap in GDP, for the whole country. I mean, the Chinese are catching up, and many people think they will be a bigger economy than the United States within 20 or 30 years, but that's because they've got 5 times as many people.
Let's look at this piece from your FT. I thought your FT piece today was wonderful. It was direct and to the point. A lot of people disagreeing with Skidelsky. A golden opportunity for monetary reform. Global imbalances lie at the heart of the current recession. Failure to address them will abort recovery. When you say that, do you mean Seoul, Korea, or are you giving them some time?
Well, they're not going to reach any agreement in Korea.
Darn.
No. I mean, that won't happen. There's no basis for it. There's no basis for agreement as to, both sides are accusing the others of manipulating their currencies in order to gain a competitive advantage. And the danger of that, of course, is that you're going to get back to the currency wars of the 1930s, and that would be disastrous for recovery. So there's got to be an agreement on exchange rates, in my view.
Is there a history of that? Is there a history of agreements?
There was a famous agreement known as the Bretton Woods Agreement.
So you're looking for a new Bretton Woods?
Yeah, I think I'm looking for a new Bretton Woods.
I want to look at these 2 charts. This is what we do in America. Lord Skidelsky, we have 2 charts, and we look at them 2 different ways. Here's normalized exports, China exports, it's Chartapalooza, it's China exports and U.S. exports, and if you normalize them, the critics can say, oh my word, China exports are booming and U.S. exports are not. We went back 10 years, China exports are boom. Now give us the other chart. Here they are, non-normalized, just against each other as a growth rate. It's remarkable how they mirror each other. Which of those two pictures do you look at? Do you worry about China exports booming, or do you say their growth is good for us and our exports will match theirs on a rate of growth?
Well, I think the real proof of the pudding is the current account deficit of the United States. I mean, its deficit with China has been growing. I mean, it grew right up to the recession. Then there was a bit of down, and now it's sort of expanding again. And that's where the problem lies. I mean, it's not surprising that America would have much larger exports because it's a larger economy to start with. But as a ratio, the Chinese are a much stronger exporting country than the United States. And that is because of the exchange rate. And the Americans say the Chinese have deliberately undervalued their currency in order to gain this advantage. Now, of course, if quantitative easing comes in, and I mean it's started, that should drive down the dollar.
Your face turned white when I said quantitative easing. What do you think?
Well, you see, I think that's going to be its main effect. I don't think it's going to have much effect on domestic prices.
On the real economy.
On the real economy here, but on the domestic economy, but it will have an effect on the export economy, and that should be beneficial. But I don't know whether the United States is going to be allowed to get away with it.
You're making the rules here. We wanted to bring this back. It's Barry Ritholtz. We showed you this in the last section, folks. Markets actually thrive on doubt, imperfect information, and a lack of consensus. You like that, and you think, Skidelsky, that it provides a real distinction between markets and economics.
Well, I don't know what he intended to say. He means the markets. Well, what's good for the markets isn't necessarily good for the economy. You know, I don't think the markets may thrive on doubt because doubt enables you to make quick killings.
Right.
But the economy doesn't thrive on doubt. The economy prefers certainty. That's what everyone is. You know, everyone is talking about uncertainty as preventing, as stopping recovery, and I agree with that. They want certainty about what's going to happen, what the government's going to do, how they can plan. Companies
Are we more certain than we were 2 years ago? Are we better off now?
No. Well, I think the economy's done a bit of a recovery, but we're no more certain than we were. In fact, uncertainty, most people think, has increased.
Well, I want to talk about austerity along with uncertainty because London is seeing uncertainty in the streets. We've got Kitty Donaldson and Chris Spillane out of our London News Bureau. Let's show this footage, if you would, Rex. You run the video. If you would. There's the video there. These are university protests. These are everybody that wanted to take Skidelsky at Warwick. And these are serious protests today looking at university fees. Now, this is happening right now in London, and this is a modest outcome of austerity. Was this to be expected by the Cameron government?
Well, they were very foolish if they didn't expect that. If, you know, in a recession, government starts cutting, and so that, you know, universities, people can't go to university, they start cutting housing, education, public services, then, of course, there are going to be protests. And although the unions, trade unions are much weaker than they were following Thatcher, they're still strong in the public sector, and they're going to organize protests, and protests are going to happen all over Europe. Now, I don't think they're going to be anything like revolutionary, but they are an expression of strong popular discontent with, it's almost an instinctive discontent. It's not based on, you know, economic sophistication, but an instinctive discontent with the policy of cutting in a recession.
David Rosenberg uses the phrase frugality. What did Keynes say about austerity? Did he know that word?
He did. He said, the time for austerity is when the economy is booming. That's when
did President Bush get that memo? His biography's coming out now. His history of his presidency. Where was the austerity in the United States when we were booming?
Well, that history is very important. I think governments were too profligate during the good years. They didn't build up a cushion a fiscal cushion to help them through the bad years. And the trouble is they started the recession, many of the European governments, already in unsound positions.
Again, folks, the FT column today by Robert Skidelsky, very important. Here it is over here, another idea. You support Secretary Geithner on attempting current account caps, 4% caps, the proposal for 4% caps on the current account surpluses and deficits by Secretary Geithner, a nod towards your Keynes. Okay, fine, but it's really not Keynes, is it?
No, it's a very, very small step. The idea behind it is good, which is to limit the extent to which countries can run either surpluses or deficits. Keynes wanted to eliminate them altogether. Geithner just wants to cap them. But I mean, I suppose what Geithner's proposal doesn't address is why the Chinese decided to go in for such huge reserve accumulations to start with. And that was due to their fear of hot money.
And that fear is there again.
It's there again.
Can you, with all of your study of history, can you stop, halt, diminish capital mobility?
Yes. Yes.
How do you do it?
Well,
just say no.
Well, you can tax short-term movements, and you can just you can certainly stop it. You can't eliminate it entirely, but you can eliminate it to the extent you need to get more stable capital flows. Hot money is really the issue.
In the last minute that we have with you, Churchill came out of World War II and got clobbered. We just saw a president here get shellacked in his own words. What would be your advice to the Obama administration?
Well, my advice to the Obama administration would be now to agree on to extend the Bush tax cuts for a temporary period. 2 years, let's say, and try and get bipartisan agreement on a new tax code, which would eliminate some of the exemptions and allowances, and therefore lead to an increase in taxes in the medium term, which is an essential part of rebalancing the budget.
Well, this is wonderful. I hope you come back. Robert Lord Skidelsky, folks, with his book. I want to show the book to you right now so you know the cover when you order it. This is Keynes, The Return of the Master. It is a spectacular, readable effort on a lot of the misconceptions of John Maynard Keynes. People toss his name around with great certitude, and Skidelsky's grade over all the misinformation about John Maynard Keynes. Be sure you look at The Return of the Master.